And hello and welcome, my name is Foxy and you are watching B Detailed Skeleton Bomber Guide. This build guide is for the Necromancer Ascendancy and I would call it the anti-summoner build. This build does have a minimal summon management, it have a lot of tanking, and of course it is rather unique and action-based playstyle, so no AFKing on that one, you will press some buttons of course. This build actually can do any map modifier, including your physical reflect, including your elemental reflect, and even no mana and no life regeneration as well. That build actually shines when you kill your bosses, it can do it very comfortable. And of course it have some memes with your wall skeleton carpet bombing. So here we go. And here's the basic idea of this build. For the first B, you will bomb with your skeletons by triggering the Minion Instability Keystone. The second B will be block attacks with the Bone Offering and Glancing Blows Keystone combination, and the third B will be actually for your Race Spectre setup, which would block any incoming projectile with the Proximity Shield. And here is the main algorithm for doing damage on this build. First you are summoning your skeletons. At the second you are lowering their life with the dual wield of Erendel Embrace and of course with the combination of the Fortress Covenant unique jewel. This jewel not only increases your minion damage, it also have rather important light where your notable in the radius are transformed into minions take 20% increased damage, and we are actually using 4 times the notable to make the third point happen, and the third point we are triggering the Minion Instability Keystone by lowering the life of the summoned skeletons just under 1 second from the initial summon. And here how we scale our damage from the Minion Instability and summoned skeletons. First you want to search for the Minion helmet, and here's 2 examples on the left. First one is the high budget version and the second one is the lower budget. And bear in mind, I recorded every single drop of this footage in this build video with the lower budget one. You want to search for the +3 levels of minion games, because you want to scale not only amount of skeletons that you do summon at once, but amount of life that they have, and with the levels of course comes the life. And speaking of life, the minion life will be always way more better than minion damage modifiers. So search first for the minion life and then for the minion damage. And the hypothermia support is a rather strong support on the minion helmet. It's very strong and push the amount of damage way more further than you can imagine, and it generally does work because you have the chill from your Skitterbot aura. And speaking of levels and the damage, you can get Empower support level 4 as your endgame goal and push the level of summon skeletons level 21 with the all Necromancer Ascendancy buffs and the buffs from the helmets. You can push it to the level 29, which is really insane. And of course you can always use the wall summon skeletons, because pushing that wall summon skeleton carpet bombing button is so much fun, it never gets old. And here is our helmet skill gem links summary. First skill gem that we use is the wall summon skeletons, the second one is the empower. The third one will go for the elemental focus support. This is great fire damage skeleton source, and minion instability as well as avatar of fire for the skeletons from Erendel Embrace scepters is always fire damage, so we want to scale the fire damage. And in the fourth slot we are left with the choice of the concentrated effect and the increased area of effect. The first one is for your card boss encounters for the endgame bosses, and the second one to improve your area of effect, increased area of effect of your explosions from the minion instability. And a quick note, if you do not have the Empower support level 4 yet, you always can use the level 20 fire penetration support. It's just generally better and fits in your red slot as well. And when you're done with building your skill gems, you want to deliver your damage, and you want to have damage not only in numbers in path of building. Of course, to do that you will need to have a bit of mana management. And with the unique cluster jewel of Kitawa's teaching, you can add the keystone that will not only improve your mana situation drastically, but it also will add to your tank. And after that you will want to fix a rather interesting unique feature of the minion instability. When you summon in skeletons and when you go over the cap of maximum skeletons and your minion instability is not yet triggered, the skeletons will just disappear. The first one disappear, the next one appear, and that generally does not do any damage. So you want to eliminate the dry cycling of the skeletons, and you can do it with the From Dust jewel. This jewel not only increases amount of the spike damage that you do by summoning 4 additional skeletons at once, it actually built in the cooldown, 1 second cooldown. And as I mentioned before in the beginning, we are burning our skeletons just under 1 second, and when we have this 1 second cooldown you will always trigger the minion instability. The only downside that you will not actually reach the cap, you will always summon maximum of 8 skeletons and the cap will usually be around 10, but it is actually pretty worthy trade-off. And here is the last but not least page in our damage sources, the Elegant Hubris Timeless Jewel. This jewel make your damage just way more better. You can boost your damage at least 60% if you will find 2 Axiom Wardens at once, and it is actually generally rather easy. Of course, remember that you can find the minion damage as well from the Slumlord, but minion life is always way more better than the minion damage for the minion instability keystone. And of course there is a last bit that you can find on this timeless jewel, and this one is the Eternal Resilience. You will gain the endurance charge every second if you have been hit recently, and to note, the recently buff is the last 4 seconds. It's rather great tanking layer. After you are done with your damage setup, you want to consider have some pretty handy debuffs, and the best place is to have several curses and the elemental equilibrium. Remember, we are doing the fire damage with our minion instability, so we need to scale that. And to do that we will use the Bane with the 2 link curses. First one is the elemental weakness to lower elemental resistances generally, and the second one is particular lowering fire resistance. And to trigger our elemental equilibrium to have even more fire damage, you would like to have some cold or lightning damage modifiers on your rings or maybe amulet. And finally, here is our defense layers. So we are the Necromancer, and we can actually take the ascendancy that we will apply to our offerings, and we will be able to self-cast Bone Offering on ourselves. Of course, the Bone Offering will not only provide us with block attack damage and spell damage, it will also recover some life in the process, and we will automate our Bone Offering with the cast when damage taken support. Both gems will go to the maximum level to have the maximum life on block as possible. To trigger our cast when damage taken and to make our block spell damage and block attack damage almost capped, we will go with the Glancing Blows. This keystone will let through half of the damage on block and will trigger cast when damage taken in the dire situations, and of course it will be almost overcapping our spell damage block. And of course, just to hit our 75% not only on the attack damage block but on the spell damage block, we will equip the Rumi Concussion Granite Flask, which is rather great, unique to scale your armor and just generally your spell block damage. And here is another layer to your Bone Offering setup. You will have additional cast and damage taken support on the level 1, and you will have the Desecrate with the Convocation on level 7 and level 5. Why this is so important? In some encounters like bosses or even Blight, the corpses will be really sparse and you would like to trigger your Bone Offering in some way. And of course, in the lowest amount of damage taken, you will trigger both Desecrate and the Convocation. And the Convocation is rather important when we will talk about Spectres. And of course, you can put it in the 4 link, and the 4 link do provide you with the ability to have something like Immortal Call in the cast and damage taken support link as well. And it is rather advantageous if you already have some endurance charge generation from your timeless jewel Elegant Hubris. And now let's talk about Race Spectre setup. In the base, this is the 4 link setup. We run the Undying Evangelist. They can be found in the Act 3 area, the Scepter of God. They cast the Proximity Shield. Proximity Shield do delete any incoming projectile. So because we do run the cast and damage taken with the Convocation, when you receive the projectile damage, you will recall your minions, your specters, with the Proximity Shield to you. And the Proximity Shield will just delete any other incoming projectiles, which is rather powerful. So what you can improve with your link setup? You can run increased duration support, so your Proximity Shield uptime will be almost perfect full time. And of course, that is free real estate. Let's do some damage. And you can increase your damage from your Minion Instability by equipping the Combustion support to increase fire penetration of fire resistance, and of course to have the Feeding Frenzy buff for your minions and for yourself. And we can upgrade our Race Spectre setup with several additions. We can run it as the 5 link or 6 link in our body armor, and we can add some life to have some quality of life with the minion life support. Wow, life. That is the life. And of course, here is the Empower support. Empower support can push the level of Race Spectre gem until level 25 with our Unnatural Strange Ascendancy. And when you have level 25 Race Spectre, you will run not only 3 Spectres, you will run 4. You can combine level 21 Spectre gem with level 3 Empower, or level 4 Empower with only level 20 Spectre gem. Consider your options. And of course the skill tree compendium, important and heavy stuff. Here we go with the witch. We starting on this area of the tree, and generally it's a great idea to grab everything in the life department, some mana management, some extra damage from our minions, and after that generally I would go down here for more life while I'm leveling. And several things to note. First stop is our anatomical knowledge. This is the great slot to slot it in, because there are a lot of intelligence over here and over here, and we can benefit greatly from the anatomical knowledge over here. Down here is the perfect synergy for the Fortress Covenant. Remember, we converting 4 notables into minions take 20% increased damage. To hit that under 1 second burn time from our Arendelle Embraces. 3 can work, but I found out that 4 is just there and will always guarantee ability not to dry cycle through my skeletons. And of course, with the 4 notables you have some headroom to equip not perfect Arendelle Embraces for this build. And generally the notables in this area is rather easy to get, and you generally do not waste a lot of skill points, and most of them do something to your build. And of course, the first notable is here, second here, third here, and fourth here. Of course, extra life. Over here I do have my From Dust Cobble Jewel to have my perfect spike from the skeletons. And here we go for the Glancing Blows, some extra life and mana management. And of course, rather important, over here I went for my last large jewel socket with the Disciple of Kitawa located in here. And of course, perfect life node over here. And down here I went for my elegant hubris with the double oxium wardens here and here. And in this area it is rather easy to search for your elegant hubris timeless jewels. And remember, you always can anoint rather distance notable, like here or here for example. Just grab the anoint if you don't want to waste a lot of skill points. And generally, to top your build off, you will go for, of course, your Minion Instability just to do damage, and over here you will go for your Spectres, for your double curses, and some Chaos resistance here. I found out that rather budget version is to anoint this notable down here. That gives you 20% increased maximum life and 20% increased damage from your minions. And regeneration of life on the minions generally do not interfere with our minion instability and burn time of skeletons. And of course our ascendancy. Over here we go first for our mindless aggression, and then we go for the +2 level of minion skill gems from unnatural strengths, and then we go for the bone offering just generally to increase our tank. In the last ending section we go for our bone offering setup on self to have the Mistress of Sacrifice. Sorry. And of course we do not go for the Commander of Darkness. Why? Because it will increase the elemental resistances of our skeletons and increase the burn time of the Arendelle Embrace, which is no go for this build. So generally this is the idea for the skill tree on this build. Your mileage of course can vary, of course you can solve your puzzle in different ways, but here is the general guidelines to your build, and the path of building for this build will be down below in the description of this video. And finally we get into our specials, the auras. This build utilizes 2 auras. First one is Summon Skitterbots. Solid aura, you do increase damage through the shock effect, and you have your chill effect in the case of the hypothermia support. And of course the determination is your flat armor increase, and you want to have as much of physical damage reduction as you can get. And to top it off, we want some movement utility. There are not a lot of choices when you consider movement skills, and the Leap Slam actually works really great. It has some area of effect to just put the elemental equilibrium on your boss and some fat HP rare monsters, and you can generally trigger your Fortify support, more damage reduction, and of course you can have your faster attack support. Faster attack support will just make your life better. And let's go for the gear puzzle. The gear puzzle on this build is rather simple and straightforward. You have a lot of slots to fulfill your requirements with the resistances and dexterity for example, but there are several items to notice. For example, Anatomical Knowledge Cobalt Jewel will increase your maximum life in the right place, and of course the Watcher's Eye generally have the determination or buffs. For example, you can find the increased physical damage reduction on your Watcher's Eye. And you will of course search for the minion life and damage on your gear, and you can even craft it with the bench or maybe with the essence craft. Aside fixing your resistances and dexterity, you will search for movement speed on your boots. 30% increased movement speed is great way to start. And of course, get some armor and strength. It will increase your physical damage reduction and of course gain you some life. The Astral Plate, Vermilion Ring and One Glory Belt are great bases to search for the life and armor for your build. Thank you for watching. I was Foxy Shanks, and you can support me by subscribing to my channel on the YouTube. Just post something down in the comments, share your thoughts, how I can improve my content, and of course to secure future creation, hitting those buttons really helps. Thank you for watching one more time, and see you later on the Path of Exile.